Sorry, let's go to Dr. Steve Pieczenik, who doesn't need an introduction. He flew out there to cover it, former top hostage negotiator for the State Department and crisis manager, helped get the Camp David Accords through, was involved with General Boykin founding Delta Force in 1979, and has also been involved using psychological warfare to overthrow governments. And he says, he just told us during the break, he's got to leave very soon because they're putting major pressure on him now, the globalist intelligence groups, to kick him out of the country. And he's there on the DMZ with official, the Korean government, because they know him. He was involved in the democratization of the country, has got an attaché attached to him. And he can give us a report on what's happening to him right now and the latest from North Korea. But first off, Doc, what do you think about my rant about authoritarianism?
Well, you know, it's ironic. You and I have telepathic feelings. You're far more assertive and a little bit, quite frankly, without being facetious, you're far more historically referenced. I was so impressed with the Plato and the Nietzsche reference that I was taken aback and I had to go read some. But let me just get back to exactly what you were saying. This is not a rant. Let's make it very clear. One of the things that I learned here on the DMZ zone and in Korea and interviewing our soldiers, our special soldiers coming out of the Ranger schools at Fort Lewis, is one thing, and I've learned it repeatedly. That was the one reason why I came here. Number one, this problem is not our problem. We have contributed to this problem in South Korea through many, many ways. I would not be surprised that our POTUS, Obama and Hillary, when they went to Myanmar, decided that when we shifted all our assets into the Far East, including our CINCPAC, as well as Marines into Australia, there was no reason for it. We don't need now military forces in order to reinsure our financial interest. What I found now in South Korea was exactly the opposite of what you found in America and what I have found, and we've come to the same conclusion. I came out of here yesterday after coming to the DMZ, talking to hundreds of South Koreans. There was not one South Korean, despite this whole crisis and warmongering, who was upset, disgusted with America, or upset about some Kim Jong-un, and they thought it was a joke. They had a highly amount of disrespect for us. They said we should leave, and I've said that for 20 years. We do not need a base in Seoul. That base is worth billions of dollars. We have made a lot of money by selling it back to South Korea. They have asked us repeatedly to leave. South Korea does not need our help. North Korea will go through its own crisis as a baby goes through its crisis, and eventually it will resolve itself. Our business is not to respond to symptoms, it's to prevent them. If we have any effective system, it should be in the prevention of crisis. That's really prevention. But instead, we have a president. We've had three sequestering presidents, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, who have repeatedly got into rendition and into sequestration and into wars that were false and have continuously lied to the American public. I cannot emphasize enough your passion as well as mine. Now, I've worked with 5, 6 presidents. None of them were as vitriolic in their attempt to control the American public for everything that everybody said about Nixon. He never tried to control the American public. He looked at the IRS. He created a lot of welfare programs. We went to a war that he did not want, was started by John F. Kennedy and LBJ, who had the dignity to leave. We have people in the White House who have no dignity, no competency, and who are totally sociopaths. We have a military-industrial complex that's creating and fomenting these so-called crises. I knew the minute we were shifting our entire CINCPAC, our Navy, and our Marines into Australia while Hillary and Obama were conniving in Myanmar, Burma, I knew we would be getting into trouble in the South China Sea. We are irrelevant. I cannot tell you, after talking to hundreds of intelligence operatives here, of Koreans, we are so irrelevant. They are so prosperous that when I look back at this entire issue, you know what I come out of it with? The same conclusion you came out of it. I go through TSA. I had to go 3 times to TSA in Miami, San Francisco, and elsewhere. They were pathetic. The minorities who ran it were illiterate. They could could not speak English. The ones who could speak English were dumb, and they were looking at things that were totally irrelevant. There is no counterterrorism. There is no security. What we have created is a dysfunctional, self-destructive government. It must stop. It will not stop from the constitutional amendments that we have or our legislators. They are incompetent. The Constitution is antiquated. We have to renovate it. We have to get rid of our legislators. They no longer represent our interests. It's crony capitalism, and we can no longer really abide by presidential elections. They're just a joke. It's just one CIA asset. As many as most people won't realize, even Clinton, the slick Willie, a total sociopath, a drug addict, was recruited at Yale as a CIA asset. I was on the board in the Fulbright, where we gave out Fulbright scholarships to CIA potential candidates. When he went to Oxford and his roommate was Strobe Talbot, he never even finished the education. He ended up in Moscow, elsewhere. He doesn't talk about it. Then he goes to MENA, services our CIA through drugs into the third world country. Then we get Bush, who's a total moron, completely CIA asset, run by Cheney, run by a whole group of guys who were dysfunctional and were thrown out by Bush Sr., and yet they come up to the top because of the power elite within the Republican Party.
Sure, and Doc, let's tie this in.
Will destroy itself.
Sure, you're there on the DMZ. I want to get a little bit into that before you've got to leave us. But look at how Rumsfeld in the mid-'90s with Clinton helps transfer the reactors to the type that could create the fissile material for A-bombs. Look at how you said the big defense contractors are there trying to sell weapons to everybody during this crisis. They stand to gain from destabilization instead of just having a free market system. You were telling me yesterday how you were in the restaurant surrounded by CIA people casing you. You told Chris you've got to split soon because they're starting to put pressure on you. Describe the atmosphere there, because here it is. North Korea shows signs.
Here's the atmosphere. It's very clear. On the DMZ zone, in some ways, I'm a lot more protected because there's very little they can do to me. Either there's no grounds on which they can arrest me because basically I'm providing information literally to you and to the American public. I have not violated the First Amendment. What's happening is I'm seeing more and more surrounding me within other confines in Seoul and the CIA and DMZ, more and more American soldiers who stand out, who really have no idea of what they're doing. From Fort Lewis for Fort Bragg, I asked them repeatedly, what is your mission statement? I don't want their secrecy. They say it's so complex. I say, why is it so complex when it's psychological warfare? I asked them, how many weeks did you get in military intelligence at Fort Huachuca, which is what we do in military intelligence? You know how many weeks? 2 weeks. It was worthless.
No, they're babies, and they
not just babies. The point here.
Well, they say complex because they don't know.
No, they know. What's happening is they're being brainwashed by an incompetent system that no longer functions. Let me put it simply, as you said. In medicine, we say to the patient, above all else, do no harm. Here, we have done harm to Korea. We have done harm to Pakistan. We have done harm to Afghanistan. We have done harm to Iraq, to Syria, to the world. It is time to come back to our country, rehabilitate ourselves, take care of ourselves. The Korean Peninsula has better traffic, better infrastructure, cleaner places than we do.
Sure, you've heard of will to power. You've heard of will to power. What about will to evil? I mean,
well, it's not will to evil. Alex, I have to a little bit disagree. What I talk about, and most people don't understand it, 20 years ago, I publicly stated that Bush Jr. and the American public was following a self-destructive course of the republic and in turn creating an empire. We are no longer a republic and we will die like Rome, but what we are in an empire is we have Centurion guards in SINCPAC, SOCOM, CENTCOM, all these fancy words, including Petraeus, Jim Dempsey, the worst chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff I've ever seen, Admiral Mullen, the worst chief of staff I've ever had. If we had Eisenhower, we had Patton, we have a George Marshall, these men would have been fired. You're talking about 600-700 men within 30 days. Any one of us who fought in the Korean War or World War II, and my family fought in the Korean War, these men would have been summarily fired. We don't have that because the leadership is incompetent, it's dysfunctional, and we're continuing to go into a self-destructive
Sure, they watch their own CIA-produced movies worshiping themselves and actually drink their own Kool-Aid.
Well, that's true, but they produce the movies in order to create for themselves a fantasy that they want to say.
No, I know. They're a bunch of delusional peacocks.
CIA operatives, and none of them are effective assassins. There were times that I sat there and I couldn't believe it. They had a subcontract out in Lebanon, and I won't give the name because he knows exactly what I'm talking about, where they literally blew up 84 innocent men and women. Years later, I looked at him and I said, this is impossible. On the other hand, we have had some great CIA leaders, like Don Gregg, Jim Lilly, Paul Redman, all of whom who were bred and out of the old OSS and were dedicated selflessly to our country. But we now have a CIA that is as lazy and incompetent as our generals. They are overpaid because they're funded by third-party payments. So instead of coming into our agency, they're funded by SAIC, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, L3 Communications, and you'll see they get double the pay and half the capability. We do not need the CIA. We do not need this military. It is dysfunctional. If the American public understands how self-destruction, we have lost every single war. Since World War II, we have lost the Korean War, the Vietnam War. We have gone into an absurd war.
Absolutely. Bottom line, what's the current situation?
We have lost the Pakistan War. We have lost the Egyptian War, Libya. And so we have a bunch of liberals, we have a bunch of idiot Republicans who have no idea about foreign policy. It is time to devolve the government, and if we can't do that, then separate the United States into the effective components it belongs to. And that's what I've said in state of emergency. I have repeatedly stated, let the governors take care of their own states, and the rest be damned. The federal government is a totally useless cancer on our American system way of life. If we do not change the Constitution, eliminate the representatives who are totally fat and lazy and incompetent, and if we do not eliminate our generals who are incompetent.
He's all the way in South Korea. Sometimes he, I think, loses our audio, but we may get one more update tomorrow specifically on what's happening on the DMZ, but it's just a bunch of warmongering by all sides to grandstand and make government bigger and make the public more scared. Just like staging terror attacks, Kim Jong-un stages these events.
As we saw in Katrina, and as we are watching now in New York and New Jersey, the federal government can't and won't help you in a crisis. FEMA ran out of water and MREs in days. Electricity is still off to over 1 million people. The Red Cross, who is quick to beg for money, is now slow to react. Don't put it off any longer. Get prepared today. While you're on InfoWarsShop.com, check out these other great preparedness items. The Aquapod kit lets you store up to 65 gallons of water in your bathtub. The Pocket Socket provides you with manual electricity for small electronics like your cell phone. The Life Straw is great for your bug-out bag. And check out our complete line of Interfood products for great tasting and nutritionally dense foods that have a great shelf life. If you are looking to secure your home in a crisis, you can order Strategic Relocations, the film, a great companion to the book Strategic Relocations 3rd edition, and The Secure Home by Joel Skousen. When the time to perform arrives, the time to prepare has already passed. Get prepared now, so if a crisis strikes your home, you and your family will be secure. Go to InfoWarsShop.com.
All right, folks. Yeah, Dr. Pieczenik is in South Korea, and that's why he couldn't hear me sometimes. The line sounds pretty good, but sometimes it's only one way, kind of like cell phones do that sometimes. He's telling me a lot during the breaks. Bottom line, he's saying his access is being denied. He's being blocked. He's got folks creeping around, but he want to make a big deal out of that. But he has had a chance to talk to a lot of the military, and they said that there basically is no mission. I mean, the mission is look like they're doing something, but it's all for show. Just like North Korea pretty much is all for show. But if it gets too escalated, North Korea has attacked before. And so, the big thing is he believes don't stir it all up. So the West has an excuse to dominate that area of Asia, and that things might end up good down the road. Is that an accurate statement in closing, Dr. Pieczenik?
Yeah, the basic 2 points that everybody has to look at is April 15th is the anniversary Kim Il-sung. April 30th, you may see rockets in celebration, but let me tell you very simply, we are irrelevant. The North Korea is irrelevant. The only country that's relevant right here is South Korea, and quite frankly, they do not need our military help. It's as simple as that, and let us get out of every other country and worry about our own country. That's the summary.
Well, the empire is getting more delusional when the White House press secretary, former secretary, gets up and says, I'm told to lie to everybody, and then the MSNBC host laughed. What do you make of their move to get our guns, and MSNBC hosts saying things like, the state now your children belong to the state? That's being run as an hourly promo. What are they trying to do?
The point of the state running, the government running the United States of America is two issues. One, it's totally self-delusion. Two, it's out of desperation. Three, it's total incompetency. Number four, there is no way in hell that the U.S. federal government can run anything other than barely itself, because there's no way they're going to garner 300 million guns. I conceal weapons. Half of the South that I know carries concealed weapons, including physicians, everyone else. So, Obama has no idea what America's about. Nobody in Washington, D.C. has an idea about America. Nobody has ever read American Revolution or George Washington.
Oh, I have, yeah.
We're born of the gun, not because we want to kill. We're born of the gun because we have always been mistrustful of George Washington having said the following: do not make a president. He will eventually become a king. If he is a king, then we will have to depose him. That's what we're about. We're a democracy. It's time to come home, take care of ourselves, take care of our children, bring back our army that has lost all the wars since the Second World War, get rid of the CIA, get rid of Homeland
Well, that's another point. If they think
all the departments.
Sure, if they think the globalists are going to dominate America, they couldn't even hold Baghdad. Resistance is victory, and all the billions of bullets and all of it is bluster by a criminal group that knows they should all be going to jail for the too big to fail. And look, Americans buying hundreds of millions of guns a year, hundreds of millions, folks. Americans, the last 2 years, 70 million background checks to buy guns. And half of them out there aren't even through that system. The people are voting, buying the bullets. America is actually awake. It's a psyop that we're not awake. It's a psyop that we've embraced communism. It's all a load of bull. And I only hope that we can shift back to the states and 10th Amendment before it goes to a full-bore civil war.
We will get back our power, trust me. I have a full faith in the American public. That's why I came forth, try to sacrifice my life. I don't want to make myself a hero. This is the 10th time. I did it 8 times to the United States government without any remuneration, but I warned our Army, I warned our intelligence, I warned the White House, and I warned every other institution, particularly the TSA, Homeland Security, the FBI, and every other element, that if they are to continue their self-destructive behavior, America will retaliate. They have no idea what the American public is like, from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the North.
Absolutely. God bless you. God, thanks for coming on with us.